everybody.
Episode 8.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Really?
It really is.
Wow.
Episode
Thanks,
8.
guys, for listening.
Hi, welcome to Playing in Traffic.
Welcome to Playing in Traffic.
We're extra excited right now because we got a guest.
We're very
on our
excited.
show. And his name is Chad.
Hi, Chad.
Hey.
Welcome.
Welcome to our podcast. You guys, we have our first guest ever.
Yep, in the official podcasting room.
It's pretty exciting.
Yep. Okay.
Official podcasting.
So welcome, Chad. Thank you for coming on. Tony and Chad went to the same church together.
Yeah, so we were kind of baptized around the same time.
Yeah.
What year were you baptized?
2008.
2008.
Yeah.
I was 2006. And then he was also a deacon. Became a deacon in 2010?
Yes.
2010.
Oh.
And he was a house church leader. He was in several house churches, too, right?
Two of them. Mm-hmm.
2 house churches. And so we wanted to have him on to share his story with us. And Chad's been out longer than me, so he's like really like farther along in his healing and everything. So it's really cool to have him on. And he's been like so helpful in my healing too. Like I'm always like, you know, I remember when I was first coming out, I'd like send him little texts like, you know, is this normal for me to be feeling like this? I say, yes, is this normal? And like he'd be really patient because, you know, he would like want to talk about things, but I wasn't really ready yet. So that's been really cool.
One thing,
a lot, huh?
One thing that happened a week ago. We've been talking to Chad.
Oh
about
yeah,
coming
so
on.
Chad's been wanting to come on for a long time, like since we started. We knew he was going to be a guest, so we're like super excited.
Yeah.
And then I got a message and said, "Hey, do you know this guy?" And it was a YouTube video, and and he says he's a deacon from Denver, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's Chad's voice," but somebody had secretly recorded him.
On a phone
conversation.
call and released it. And it was super lame and messed up. But it's actually a very great phone call.
Thank you. Yeah.
Even though it was released without you knowing
Well, it's weird. Like, after listening to it, I mean, I remember talking to the guy, but I had no memory of, like, what the conversation was about.
Yeah.
And it's just weird because I think when I had that conversation, I was pretty much where you're at now. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I had just started speaking out online, because I didn't right away. It was about a year after being out that I just started getting pissed off, you know, because they were just doing something. There was that interview with the Today Show, and I think that's what started it because I saw how much they were lying.
The Today Show did an interview.
I remember that.
Yeah, that's a very good thing to see, but they're lying throughout the whole thing, and I think that's what triggered it, and I finally started just, like, commenting on these, like, public videos, and that's how this guy found me, and he started, I have the email still of like how we first started talking, and he was just telling me that he was questioning leaving, so I was doing whatever I could to help people get out, you know, because at this point I understood it was a cult, all this stuff, you know, and I just wanted to help him, and I was like, I'll tell you my story, and, you know, I was a deacon, I was very involved, I knew the nitty gritty of this place, so let me talk to you, and hopefully that'll help him come out. And so he called me this one night, and we had that conversation, and I thought I was just talking to him, trying to help him. And, you know, so that conversation was specific to, like, you know.
But it was very private.
Yeah,
you
very
talked
private
about your
conversation.
marriage and things like that. And it's like, what if you were not ready to let your story be heard to the whole world?
Yeah.
Watching Tony's process.
I was so angry because I think
mad.
We already have a trust issue after what we've been through.
Right.
And so you were trusting this guy who you thought you were trying to help.
Right.
And then I understand his intention was good to, like, you know, put the truth out there, but still, the way he did it really makes me
knowing Tony's process and how hard this has been for her to know that, like, you had that released without.
I mean, had I known I was being recorded, just no matter what the conversation is about, if I know I'm being recorded, it's going to alter what I say because I'm going to be, like, self-conscious about how I sound.
Well, you wouldn't have lied or anything.
No,
you just would have
that's
been more like, maybe I shouldn't say, like, somebody's name or something like that.
Right, I was calling people out specifically, and that's part I'm like, ooh. But I have no regrets, though, about that conversation, and honestly, I'm a little bit impressed with that version of myself from almost 5 years ago. Because... well, some of the stuff I explained in that call, like, now I had completely, I'm like, oh, I totally forgot about that.
Right.
But, so, everything is truthful and accurate. I was just a little surprised of, like, man,
For
like
sure.
I'm,
It being out
I was
there.
still crisp, you know what I mean?
Right,
And so
right.
over the last couple of years, I've lost that because I just moved on, and it was
Right.
actually right after that call that I think I've been so caught up with trying to, cope with everything and figure out like why they're not correct. I'm just reading all this stuff, and I think by the time that conversation happened, I was just burnt out. I also felt alone, so I felt a lot of weight on my shoulders because people were reaching out. And I didn't, back then there was no community of former members to talk to and have support. Like they existed, we just didn't know how to find each other then. And so I want to give a shout out to all the guys in our group chat because I think it's really awesome that everyone has each other, that they, whoever kind of like was able to do that and at least use modern technology and social platforms to find each other.
Which is why they told us don't exchange information.
Right.
Don't talk to each other.
They didn't want us to have that support.
That if we talked to each other, we'd help each other, and
we would break and we would fall away, and we would
compare stories,
and we would be like evil spirits just spreading throughout one another and all that kind of stuff. But
so they give you this fear to like contact other members. When you get out. So.
Yeah. Well, and even with some that were even in Denver with us, I tried to contact some of them, but those guys did not want to talk about it. Like they were in a rough place, obviously, but they just didn't. It's like they wanted to forget me and forget the whole experience, and so that was tough.
Everybody kind of goes through those stages, I think. Yeah,
and just at that time, though, like when this recording took place, like that was really when I was like, I feel like I'm still losing to them by giving them all this time of like caring about them. And to me, it got to a point where I'm like, these mofos are not worth it. They're not worth my time. They already took enough of my time. And so I really just stopped communicating with people online or trying to like help anyone. And that's when it got posted. So I had no idea all these years.
It's been on there for 4 years, you guys.
Almost 5. It's March 2017.
We're like, up.
But I am very, very thankful though that it did have the impact that it did on certain people.
It did help other people come out.
Because especially some of the people who it helped, like they're the ones who are doing a lot of stuff on YouTube now, and it's really good. Right. And I'm just happy those people got out. I'm glad they're living a normal life now. For sure. For anyone who's still in the church, I just want to be another person who confirms that when you leave, nothing bad happens. True. Actually, life gets significantly better. Right. And
you were always afraid, like, if you miss a Sabbath day, you're going to get into a car accident. Yeah. Or, like, your family member's going to die and it's going to be all your fault. Did you feel like that?
Oh, yeah. Like, you are terrified to leave because you feel like if you don't, you are immediately uncovered by God, and you're like just this exposed thing in the universe that could just get destroyed at any moment. And only by being at that building with those people is what saves you. And it's just
crazy.
And I mean,
But hey, we've been out how many years, and look at us.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I'm telling you, I still haven't been in any tragic accident. I still feel the same as I did when I kept the Passover. I still feel like I am that I'm still the person that I'm a good person, right? I'm not evil. I don't have all these evil desires because I lost the Holy Spirit. I'm still that same person with the same intentions in life of being a loving person, a good person, trying to help people. Right. The problem is just that while being in that group, at that time, I thought that was the answer in the way, it's doing God's will, but you can totally still live a good life and make a good impact outside of that place. Sure. Actually, even better, because when you fall into their trap, you're not actually doing good. You're being a puppet that's serving a higher agenda. And it's not a good one. Yeah. It's an agenda to take advantage of people, and you're one of them right now if you're still in it.
That's something I wanted to ask you, kind of like what I questioned with you. Do you guys like now looking outside in? Do you think that it's for money?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
You do.
Yeah. I think money
that's
and
like the driving point of the whole thing.
I think so what I've tried to explain before to people is that they really, they have this front of being a church, and not only that, the true church, right, that has all the answers of life. that's the front, but really it's just a way to make money. It's really more set up like a business structure. You know, like it really has that element of any business. A pastor is like the director, you know, of business. I mean, even executive level, right? Then you have a missionary, which is more of like kind of like a senior manager, right? And then a deacon, deaconess, they're managers. And then all the gospel workers or any other member, they're staff level.
Yeah,
and
right.
so everyone is, you know, the whole thing at the end of the day, when it comes to how one of the most important things, you guys talked about this on a previous episode, but one of the key factors of salvation at the end of the day, it's about tithing and money and all that kind of stuff. And
tithing is how you're connected to God. It's
your
direct connect. They can compare it to an umbilical cord.
Yeah, I mean, it makes
that's
sense
how you stay
because
connected and stay fed and everything like that.
Right, and it makes sense because, you know, we need to have money to survive in this life, right? It's a given. It's a key thing. And so whatever you spend your money on, that's going to be more of like what your heart's into. And they would explain that too, but that's how, when you're tithing in this church, you are being connected to God because you're giving all your money and resources there, you know.
Whatever your heart is there, your mind will be, or whatever.
Yeah.
Remember that verse?
And so, anyway, so if you stop doing that, though, like what happened to you, then they just cut you off at that point. But like if you are keeping one service a year and they're giving money, then they're like, all right, cool.
That's true.
I mean, I can think of many examples, or one specific that where I don't want to tell them their business, but something really messed up happened. It was in 2015, and it was where a deacon had an affair, and he was married to a deaconess, and he had an affair with a younger member, right? Well, the thing is, according to the Bible and all that kind of stuff, it explains like when that kind of thing happens, it's like in 1 Corinthians, but they are supposed to be kicked out of the church indefinitely, right? For being adulterers. Well, he was suspended for a moment, for like a month, and people kind of knew what was going on, but then he wanted to keep service so bad that when he was allowed to come back, and he's tithing, he's giving his offering, and they were able to look over that entire situation and allow him to still like have his privileges, even though this messed up thing occurred. But I saw not only that, though, they totally took advantage of him because he had a skill that was valuable to the church.
He was always working until like 2, 3 in the morning.
You knew who it was?
Yeah, he was someone we were very close with. And
I just want to cry because I love him so much. Like, he's such a sweet, kind.
So then they had this over his head, and they were like,
they held it over his head. But that was the thing.
See, I wasn't there then. I was in the house church, or maybe I was in North Bend. I don't know.
I don't think you guys were going to the main church, but.
Yeah.
So, but that broke my heart because he was someone I was very close with. He taught me a lot, just even with like handy skills, because that was his main profession, and he was very good at it. So the church used that for anything, free labor. And he did so much, and there's things I worked on him with too, just kind of as his apprentice. But so main point being though is just that they allowed him to come back, stay involved, all this kind of stuff.
Because he was still tithing?
Yeah, 100%. Because like I would see him during the service times. You know, I was in the orchestra in those days, so you can kind of see everybody who's in the audience. And I would see him there just looking so pitiful and sad because he felt so guilty and shamed. And even though he had done so much for them, but he looked like he acted like they were doing him a favor by allowing him to just be in service and give that offering. And I just remember, you know, this is the year I got out was 2015. This is happening like 6 months before I left, and I just remember being like so upset for him that they were just, you know, like I had already been seeing other situations where people were being taken advantage of, but he was one specifically where.
With the money. And you know, the thing is all the members give their money.
Yeah.
But then whenever there's a church project or whenever there's food that needs to be made, you have to still like give another offering.
I know.
So it's like, where's all their money going from the tithe and offering?
Well, here's a lot of the debt that I racked up while being in there. I had a lot of credit debt when I left. And but so much, like all that was church expenses, a lot, like orchestra instruments.
Chad was in the orchestra. What did you play?
I was on the horns. I played a euphonium, a trumpet, French horn, and trombone.
Which he loved, right? Didn't you love it?
Oh, I loved it, but also.
Do you still play?
Huh?
Do you still play?
No, I tried and I was like, ugh.
It was very beautiful. They use music to like move you and
Mm-hmm.
give you emotional feelings.
Yeah.
That's something that I read, is that music can be used to like create certain feelings in you and like have a special connection, because we weren't allowed to listen to regular
state.
Right.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to listen to regular music.
No.
So we're in the car, we're listening to their songs. We're, you know, whatever we're doing, we're listening to their songs only.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if right now is the best time to talk about it, but like some of the things that were causing me to leave, you know, so I was in the orchestra and I always loved music. Music's always been I always have dreamt of being good at it, and that's what the thing about the orchestra is, that it was like an opportunity to live my dream in some kind of way, like as a musician.
For sure.
But and I joined the orchestra because I was losing faith after 2012. That's another thing I can confirm. They absolutely taught that.
Absolutely, they said
they're totally a doomsday cult for sure. And so they use fear in your money. You know, that's how it happens. But anyway, so from 2013 through the end of 2015, I just was like going through the motions. I was existing in this place, but like I could not be a teacher anymore. Just like I didn't have enough faith to even be standing in front of people. I would go on these preaching trips, but I would find ways to just like kind of hide out, because I was a deacon, and I would act like I'm kind of supervising everything. I'm on standby if you need a baptism, but like I couldn't approach people because
Chad had a baptism authority. He was able to baptize.
I baptized a lot of people. Thankfully, I didn't bring many people in, but I did study with a lot of people that later were baptized by me or whatever. I mean, it's probably been close to 1,000, maybe more, in that 5.5 years as a deacon that because years like 2012, thousands of baptisms. 2015 was like that too, with the year of Jubilee. That was another like prophetic year where they were repeating 2012 again, but even larger scale. Like the numbers were bigger in 2015 across the world. You know, so anyway, I just try to find ways to still be involved, but I just was doing everything I could to avoid being a teacher or like a group leader, like feeling responsible for them. And so the orchestra was the thing where, you know, that kind of grew. It started in 2012, and by 2015 it became this really big tool, as you mentioned, for these like community events. But and that even led to I became like the assistant director of the orchestra, because the missionary who was really in charge, he was spending most of his time having to do stuff with the pastor because they were expanding still and all that stuff. So I was put in charge most of the time. But while I was doing that, you know, I was starting to kind of, you know, there's parts of me that was like my old self, as we would refer to it, like that were coming back. So because I was playing music, I started listening to world music again. Nice. I was listening to like jam bands and Fish and like all my life. And I would feel so rebellious because like I was also like really focusing on my career then too, and making friends with people at work.
And that feels sinful. Focusing on your career or going to school.
Yeah, I also went back to school. That was another thing that contributed to me finally leaving. But yeah, as I was around these people that I liked that were just normal people, I also like would feel embarrassed if I rolled up to work or school and I'm listening to new songs or like these corny ass songs sung by Koreans.
Every time I'd get in her car, I'm like, please. It's so good. It's so beautiful. Just listen. I'm like, no.
I still think it was like the music was beautiful.
I would listen to. So I eventually just bought they had instrumental CDs, and I would listen to those. Yeah. And because I thought they were good. They were they played pretty
English.
Music. But it's like the Koreans singing in English. It's so obvious, and like, they're always like operatic when they sing. And it's just.
Oh, Tony promised me that you guys would do dance for me later.
Oh my god! Oh my gosh!
She said, "I bet Chad remembers it."
I don't remember. Oh, when she sent me that video yesterday,
what year was that?
That was 2011, 2012, 2011 though, because I was in Kansas City then.
Yeah.
And that's when it first started. Yeah. So. And I don't even know why or
Because
how,
we
but
had to
it
do
was,
this random ass like flash mob dance, and
Yeah.
everybody was doing it all over the world.
yeah,
We
and
did it at
recording.
the Denver Broncos.
Yeah,
Oh
you
my
guys-
God! So we were trying to like preach to Tim Tebow.
Yo,
And we marched
I was the
around.
one who preached to him, like through the
Oh my
megaphone when we
gosh,
did that.
And we marched around the stadium, and I
Yeah.
saw my uncle there. I saw my uncle there.
It was
Yes,
the
but
wall
I
to
was-
Jericho.
I know,
were
he
gonna
was just
fall.
like-
Whisper which one.
It was two of them.
Ah.
I don't know what they're saying, guys.
Anyway, it was
Say
my
the
two
name of which
uncles, and I
uncle.
just know that they thought I was so weird. So I was like, we were marching around,
That
and we
was
were
weird.
singing.
That was very weird.
so weird.
And all of that was in preparation for 2012.
Right.
And we were doing these big,
And we would
stupid
stay up
things.
till like 2 a.m. practicing to have it be perfect because it was to reveal God's glory.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
And-
yeah, there's times
Oh my gosh.
in the later years, like and year of Jubilee and stuff, like with the orchestra being so big, then we were literally staying until like 3 a.m, and because we started a marching band, like the orchestra evolved into the marching band.
But on top of this, you guys, you have to be
So
preaching. You
Yeah.
have to keep all the services. You have to be bearing fruit. You have
Yeah.
to having a job and having
Yeah.
kids and doing
So
it
that
all.
you can pay your tithe.
Yeah.
Well, was your tithe just like the total income of whatever you made?
Right.
So sometimes you.
So you're doing that
What if you're
plus
making
offering
zero
though,
income?
like
If you're making 0, your tithe is 0, but they don't like that.
yeah, they'll tell you to go get a temp job, go
You get
donate
a temp
plasma.
job. For
Go-
sure.
Like a lot of
For
people were doing
sure.
it after they
For
sold their
For
cars.
sure.
And they were
For sure.
jobless because they thought the end
one
was
quick
coming.
story I want to talk about that I haven't talked about. Do you remember when we moved from a smaller church to the bigger church?
Yeah, so I was in North Dakota then,
Oh,
but so
we
I
had a
was-
big meeting,
Oh, okay.
and we were all told like this is the time to like devote yourself and
Mhm.
give all your money that you can, and like
Mhm.
people were encouraged to like. I think some people sold their houses
Yeah.
and moved and gave a big chunks of money to buy that big church.
Oh, that's how that happened.
Mhm.
Because I remember, so I went to, so I'm baptized 2008, and this is May of 2008. So by March 2009, so like 8-9 months later, I'm already married.
Mhm.
And
Do you want to explain that?
Sure. So the church, there are certain stories out there that exist where people have had the opportunity to choose who they marry.
Mhm.
That happens. But it's also very, very common that if you show potential to be a leader in this group, whether you have shown potential to, if you show potential to be groomed, whether you become a deacon, deaconess or not, they a lot of times will then step in and arrange your marriage, right? So in my case, I will have to say though, I was interested in
That's
my wife
true.
at the time. I was attracted to her.
Mm-hmm.
I
She
knew
was so amazing.
she was a
I
great
loved her so
person.
much, yeah.
First, I want to clarify that. Although we're divorced now, she was a good person, and that was a big another reason why I stayed in as long as I did, because I didn't want her to suffer from my decisions to leave. And I knew that inevitably that would happen, especially with her being Korean. They shame each other for that kind of thing. Like, so if a Korean is married to an American and they divorce, like, it's almost like they don't get the opportunity to get remarried, because it's almost, I don't know if they feel like they failed, but it's like a bad mark on them within, because there is like another world within the church where it's just the Koreans only.
Mhm.
There's a lot of stuff that happens
that
between
Americans
them.
don't know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And anyway,
It's very strict for the Koreans. Like the
Yeah, very
Koreans have
strict.
it harder, I think. Than
Yeah,
the
they are
Americans. They get
expected-
rebuked severely.
oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, they have a higher expectancy.
Yeah, because they're like the way they can get sent there is like they have to prove in Korea that they're such a good gospel
Mhm.
worker that they're going to come to the United States and be this perfect example,
Mhm.
because they're so close to the Heavenly Mother
Mhm.
that they have no reason not to be. Like they've been, so they consider themselves to be blessed because they are born in the country where God dwells. But that is
It's
also
like God's
Well, I
holy
didn't
land.
know that.
yeah,
God's
God's
holy
yeah.
land.
So
I mean, it makes sense. I just
yeah, so they have higher expectancy.
Expectations, yeah.
And so they have to be like, for men, you have to be a good Bible teacher or possibly be a deacon, but you can't just be a
Or a
common,
construction worker.
yeah, have some kind of
Yeah.
hard skill, some trade to offer,
Right.
but
electrician.
but for the women, it's more like, some of them are
Serving,
teachers, but
right.
yeah, very submissive. Someone who's maybe can help in the kitchen, but so it's very common that an American member, whether they're male or female, they'll be partnered with a Korean of the opposite sex. And anyway, so in my case, so I had heard about this. I was 3 months in, and I joined with my good friend. He was my best friend. He was my roommate at the time too. He got recruited a week before me. And then I can go into detail about that later, but, like all the things that made us, interested. But, anyway, so he and I, like, they were trying to groom us from the get-go. And so by 3 months in, I was kind of showing a little bit more confidence than he was. He always kind of struggled because he wanted to just be a casual member. And so after we had done all of our studying and they're trying to make us teachers and gospel workers, he struggled with that, because
Chad was ready to go. Chad was like, yeah.
Well, and honestly, a lot of it was one, I was like pumped and thought we had found the truth, and I thought these studies were awesome, and I thought everybody was really cool. I thought it was a great place because of all the different nationalities. And I was raised Christian. I wasn't religious at all before joining this. Like I by the time I was 19, I'd stopped going to church and was just like, I'm spiritual or whatever.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask you. I didn't know if you were.
I had a very good foundation of Christianity growing up. My parents worked for the church.
You went into it believing that the Bible was pretty much the word of
Yeah, I mean, when I went into it, I guess what I was thinking at that time was like, I was raised to believe this.
Yeah.
And if it is true, these people have it right, though, because the way they explained it, it made it seem like it was alive. Whereas, like, growing up as a Christian, I would read my Bible.
It all happened in the past.
Yeah, it's old. It's a book of history.
It's a really good way to describe it. That's how they present it.
They present it that things are still happening to this day, that God is still at work. God is still working for our salvation. That's, like, the thing that's different. And the way they do that is through prophecy.
Yeah.
And that was what made them so different than any other common Christian church, is their focus on fulfillment of prophecy. And they knew the fulfillment of prophecy, and they would try to show you, they would use this book, the evidence book, to show you, like, through historical documents of, like, how, when Israel became a nation in 1948, now the fig tree came back to life. And, because that study, for anyone who doesn't know, there's this primary teaching to explain the year of when Christ began his ministry a second time in the flesh. And that parable is connected to the nation of Israel reclaiming their independence after thousands of years of being...
They use history.
Yeah, so that's where you build your trust.
Right.
Because you
sometimes
see
they're on
things...
the wrong side of history.
Yeah, totally.
Some of that, where I was like, wait a second, are you saying...
Yeah.
World War II was...
I mean, they just think that everything...
Yeah, I mean, in a way they'll celebrate a negative event of history.
Yeah, like a horrific thing where you're like...
Because they're like, this was a big thing for our church and the work of God and all this kind of stuff.
Like being excited for World War III.
Right, yeah, we're like, any day now, we're over here getting pumped, watching the news.
Time
like,
to go to heaven.
Like, because we're thinking, this is God's plan.
That's the scary part.
I know. I wasn't scared because I thought it was true. When I would talk to Tony and she'd like to see what North Korea did.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm so worried that you're gonna get you're gonna go missing one day.
Well, and it's interesting.
Korea,
There's so much to say about this group being a Korean cult, because that's the other thing we have to totally acknowledge. They say they're Christian. They are not a Christian group at all. Like that, there's so much Korean influence. It's a Korean twisted version of Christianity, but they're totally, I mean, they say they're Christian because they define Christianity as believing God in the flesh. But, like, there's just so much stuff about the way that, I mean, everything when they interpret the Bible and prophecy, it has a Korean bias to it, right?
Like, they believe that Korea is blessed because...
We were going to do that episode this time, but next episode is the whole history of the Christianity in Korea.
Keep telling us about,
about
your marriage.
Oh, okay, sorry. So, sorry about that.
I know, it's so interesting.
Yeah,
it's also interesting.
So anyway, with my case, so what I was trying to explain is, by 3 months in, a big part of why I was like so gung-ho about it, though, I was also doing that for my friend because I knew he was struggling. I thought if I could motivate him and like be kind of the stronger one out of the two, maybe it'll make him more comfortable and he can just kind of, because he was younger than me. He was like 20 years old and I'm 24, right? So
babies.
Anyway, so Pastor talked to me about moving out of that house that I was living in. It was a nice home with my friends. He was trying to get us both to move out. Well,
Controlling where you live.
Yeah, controlling where you live, absolutely. So I ended up moving in, and I'm living with like 4 other brothers, and we're like half a mile from the church. Right. And before I was like 15 minutes there, and they said that was too far. Right. But anyway, I mean I could ride my bike to the church. But anyway, so I'm living there, and as I'm living with these other brothers, because that's part of the grooming process, and we're supposed to study with each other at home and all this kind of stuff. Well, one of the brothers who later became a deacon, he is the one who told me about being able to get married and arranging a marriage, and I was shocked. I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, Meryl," and he's like, because he was about to be sent to Colorado Springs with your branch. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but he told me that since he was being sent, that he was able to go to the pastor and just basically pick who he wanted to marry. And I'm like, that made me feel so like bad for them. And like, because he just made it sound like, yeah, just pick whoever you want. And like, they're ours to choose kind of thing. It's like, it's how it felt.
Yeah,
he didn't say it exactly, but then, so my future wife was just brand new at this point, and I was afraid that he like chose her. And I was like, yeah, I liked her. I was like, and so I went to pastor and I was like, hey, I spoke with so and so, and he told me, all this stuff about marriage, and so pastor was like kind of shocked at first, and then he like, how he had that look, he would just lean over his desk,
thinking and contemplating,
Brother Chad, do you want to be gospel worker? I was like, yes, amen, whatever. And he's like, do you want to be married? And I was like, yes. And then he's like, if then, just gospel work, huh? Only focus gospel work. And if then, Father Mother's will.
That's what it's for. It's for the gospel work,
So this was like August, and then by March, I think some conversations had happened between them, and she was also interested, and so we were paired together, and that's how we got married.
And they got married. They didn't like date.
No dating.
No dating. Get married.
Oh, well, the thing is, like, she didn't speak any English.
Right.
So there were ways though that I was trying to show her that I was interested, but you're not allowed to date or like interact. So like, I would like look over my shoulder and see if anyone was around, and then I would sneak into the study room where she was at and like give her a tea. Like, just be like, have a good study, but just trying to be like nice, because I had a crush on her.
And like, what a scary experience for her. She's just like, what the?
Yeah, she's brand new, and like she's trying to study English or the Bible or whatever. And
was she your same age?
No, she was actually 7 years older than me.
Oh, she was older.
Yeah. So at the time, she's like 32, and I'm 25 at this point, and I'm like, that's not so bad. But at this time, also, this is also important to know why I was okay with all this, is that they were teaching 2012, even in 2008.
For sure.
And so it was my understanding.
You guys had years of build-up waiting for 2012.
Yes.
Years and years of build-up.
So the thing that's important to know about me and just my view on marriage at that point in time, I had never thought that I would get married. Like, it was something that I was never interested in. But when I joined the group and had done these studies about 2012 and just thinking that, man, we're not going to be here very long. It's only for like 3 years. And I'm like, she's cute. And then like...
Right.
Oh, yeah,
you make decisions differently. If you think the end of the world is coming, you make different decisions.
I was like, I can handle this. Sure, why not? And so my mind opened up to it, because then it also was like, we believe in the same things. Like, we want to serve the same purpose in life.
You think everything's like designed by God, so you're probably like, she was sent here by God.
And I thought,
there you go.
And I think about just myself from 25 years of being alive, and I was like, I guess if I were to get married, this makes sense to do it this way because I've never wanted to be like a traditional person.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, it's different, but whatever. And so
I remember at your wedding you kissed.
No,
and everybody was like, did they just kiss?
I think we kissed outside
or something, and it was like so.
But we were like forced to.
Shocking because we'd had several weddings that year and nobody had ever kissed.
Well, the thing is too. On another important thing, on the day I got married, there were 2 other couples. There was 3 weddings that day.
3 weddings that day, and they were all very sweet. And
this is an element I didn't know about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
that's fascinating.
And so we had them at 3 different times, so each person got to kind of have like their little party.
But they were all within like
2 hours, 2 hours apart. Like, so and it is like a very Korean based ceremony.
Mm-hmm. We went to Tony's.
Yeah, see, and it's a lot different. The bowing thing that you were talking about, and like that totally happens. But they told us to kiss. So, like, it wasn't like initiated by us, but I think either pastor or.
Do you remember we had the big screen in the back for the little baby sanctuary?
Yeah.
And so we saw you guys kiss. Like, I don't think anybody knew. And then he was like, what? They kiss in the church. Because even if you're married in the church, nobody knows who you're married to.
No.
Nobody knows, like, who your children are or anything.
Yeah, no, and everyone's correct that has YouTube videos about this. They are very secretive about all that stuff. It's weird. And to be, as someone who is married, like, it would be embarrassing when people would ask me.
Right.
Like, honestly, I don't know why it was embarrassing, but I remember, like, they'd be like, oh, your wife is Deaconess so-and-so, she told us. And I'm like, huh, what? Why did she tell you that? Like, I'd panic, and I'm like, yep, that's my wife.
Well, once you're in that position, like a leader position, you get that kind of mindset, too. Where you're also kind of private. And like,
yeah. And, well, because you're not allowed to talk about anything. Like, you're not allowed to talk about your struggles. That's something where you have to hide that and always seem like you put on this appearance as if you're doing great. So, and that's something that's very different than a normal church. I
want to just tell a funny story. One time, my husband, we were just like coming home from work one day after church, or after our long day together, and he saw another deacon, and he was like, "How was your day?" And then he said, "Good. How was your day?" And then pastor was like, "Why do you guys speak like that?"
Yeah.
It's like we just asked how our day was.
Yeah. He didn't like us to be like friendly with each other and stuff, and like and that wasn't
anything about each other's lives or anything.
No, not at all.
And you don't really have a private life though.
No, you don't. Because so even though I was married, we did not live alone until the final year, like 2015. Until that point, we were always either living in a church or living with multiple members of the church. At the most it was at one point for me was 12 people, and we were living in a like 2-bedroom townhome, and so people were just like laying on the floor. They didn't have beds and stuff, and they had a bed bug problem.
But they're grown people. You guys are grown people.
Yeah, all grown people. Like some older than me at the time. They're like in their 20s and 30s, right? Doing this. We're paying $200 a month.
Right.
And
crazy.
Anyway, so. I'm not. Why did I start talking about that? Oh, private life. Yeah. So, so there really was never a time like you live communally, and what you talk about, you're only talking about the church, you're talking about Bible studies, you're talking about the fruit you bore, but it's always
not
about
having children. How many people you brought in?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
bearing fruit is how many people you brought in. And it was always a competition. Who can bring in more?
Yeah, when you say that, I always think of children for some reason.
Right,
so it's more like you had babies.
But it is like your spiritual baby. So you're supposed to like take care of it, give it the proper food at the proper time, yada, yada, yada.
But that's everything in that group, though. You have to be doing that because going back, it's the business model. Like, all the leaders, they never face the public. They never are the ones that are being interviewed. They're never
top.
Korean pastors and anyone senior pastors, any of those people, and they always use whatever country they're in, whoever their normal members are. They're the ones who are on the front lines. They're the ones who are taking the heat for everything. So it's just they hide behind us, and that's the thing that pissed me off. Like later on, is just thinking of all the times, and I think that initial video that I was talking about, that interview on the Today Show, that was another thing that made me mad. Not only that they were lying, but it was like the people that they selected. They're the American mirrors. Like, where's the pastor?
Right.
Where's the pastor for this?
Right.
Where's
they
the
came in for the interviews and they interviewed white guy, right?
Yeah,
and then
he's a
another
missionary
white
now.
girl.
Yeah, and he was someone that I had met in Korea too.
Yeah, but they're not the ones in charge, you guys.
Yeah, like they're not the
ones in charge. They're being told what to do by the Koreans.
They were told to do that interview, and they were told what to say, all that stuff.
If they didn't want them to do the interview, they wouldn't have done the interview.
That was before really like there were any YouTube channels or like anybody talking about you guys, and that was like the first I remember for me
that's a
on
big
the
deal.
outside. I was like,
Today Show.
The Today Show did a thing about my sister's church. I knew it was crazy because I had been like obsessed. Like Tony's in this, but I'm like simultaneously like writing papers about you guys for my college classes.
Thank you.
Coming and studying.
I mean, because that's huge. Like that's a huge thing for recovery. Is someone who put time into understand.
Yeah.
That means a lot as someone who has left. Like because I had someone similar. The guy that got me into it, his mother was like that.
Yeah.
Even
I went
though
to Korea with him. And him.
Yeah. The two of you guys went, and that was like a big deal because his family fought hard to not let him go, like physically.
It's actually dangerous for us to go. Now looking back, you guys, when you go to Korea, you're actually like super close to North Korea. You're really close to the DMZ.
Yeah.
And now looking back, I'm like, was that really safe for us to go? Because obviously the people in charge are not mentally stable. No. And when you go,
we're
you're
just
not allowed to
them
leave.
riding on a bus all over Korea.
You're on a bus.
We love you.
We love you. God bless you.
You're not allowed to leave. Like their supervision. They tell you're not allowed to leave the grounds.
No.
You know, you're not allowed to go outside at all. Like, you have to stay there and somebody's constantly watching
it's not a vacation.
No, it's not.
It is not. There is a schedule, all hours of the day. It's not relaxed. You have jet lag when you get there and you're exhausted. And they just have you nonstop everywhere.
She was obsessed with the apples.
For like the apples. The fruit is so good. The fruit out there is amazing.
You know that it's God's land because the apples grow.
Yeah, they would say that.
Apple orchards.
Yeah, they would say that because like, look how big they grow out here.
And
this
we're like,
is God's country.
Only God could do that.
Yeah, look at that.
Grow an apple.
If that's not a miracle, I don't know what is. Like, wow, there's the proof. Proof's in the apples, guys. Proof is in the apples. If you don't believe the Bible, just look at the apples. God is there.
That was like every time I see a big apple
because they would put stickers on the apples when they grew. Did you ever go when they had the apple orchard?
I don't think so.
They had an apple orchard and it was really beautiful. And they would put a sticker on the apple as the apple grew and it would say, "We love you." It would say Father of Mother.
Yeah.
And so when you pull it off, it was like, you could read it into the
Ooh.
apple. It was very special.
I'm sure that was healthy.
Oh my gosh, anyway. It was so weird.
Adhesive contaminating the apple. But, so yeah, we were talking about, going back to, I guess, about the marriage and stuff. So when we got married, though, 6 months after being married, that's when we were sent to a house church. And I was nervous about going, though, because, I was saying all this nice, cute stuff about how I felt about her before we got married. Well, once we got married, we fought a lot. And it was bad fights. So, to where I'm like, I'm not sure if we're going to make it.
She was really strong, too. I mean, she's amazing, but she's really strong.
Oh, yeah.
Strict. Really strict.
Yeah, she's very hard-headed.
Did she ever tattle on you for chewing?
No.
Like
well, I saw no.
Did she tattle on you for anything? Like
no. Well, see, I try to always be on my best behavior.
You wouldn't know because she would do it in Korean.
With that, but honestly, a lot of times she was the one that was getting more in trouble, like where pastor would approach me because her struggle, she was a hard worker, but she would struggle with like wanting. I say struggle, but like resting and like being lazy or whatever.
She wanted to sleep.
Just being tired.
Or just not do anything sometimes, and it's like totally normal stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I was expected to like be the one staying on her to like keep her motivated, but there was times whenever, especially towards the end, where it was like that for me. But at that point, our relationship had grown cold. Because even though we lived together, like, we grew apart. Because, like, just to be together on the same... It was so weird and awkward that was a big thing. And, so whenever she would see me, like, not being my best self or whatever, she would just kind of let me be. Because I think she just knew, like, I didn't want to hear it, And so... I think she would probably just pray for me or something like that instead of. But who knows? She probably did.
She probably got up at like 5 a.m. every morning.
I bet she did.
Cried praying for you. It's so sad. It really is sad.
Yeah.
Because they just think that you're going to hell.
Yeah, they're like he's dying over here. I'm watching a man
It's like
die.
she probably mourned you.
Yeah.
You know, like your spiritual death.
Yeah. But I'm very much alive, and my spirit as well. It feels great. It actually, because now I can be myself, and
for sure.
I've thankfully over the time that I've been out, it's been a process, but I feel like I've been able to figure out the best version of myself, and that gives me a lot of happiness. Because I like who I am now. I like my life, you know.
You don't have to feel guilty for like normal shit.
Yeah,
that's like always the weirdest part. Like, obviously your church, but like just organized religion in general, like that demonizing of like human nature.
Absolutely.
And you're like, what? Why would God create me to do this sinful thing and then be mad at me about it? Like, if God created me in His image.
Like, why do I have these
Dummy,
desires?
why did He just take those desires from me?
Yeah.
Thanks, Sky Wizard.
But I think, so kind of to talk about what life was like after leaving, I will say, I think this is a result of PTSD, but like the first 3 months after leaving are a complete blackout. Like, I don't really remember any of that. What I do remember is the day, so whenever I left, it probably seemed abrupt to everyone from the outside because I had literally gone every single day for 7.5 years. There was never a time where I was like in and out. Yeah. Like once I decided to leave, I left. I was done. But I wasn't sure what I was doing. So I just know that the very next day, the first person I told was my boss. And I went into work. I'm like, hey, can I talk to you? And it's like, I think I just divorced my wife last night and I just got out of a cult. And so it was easy for me to tell people up front that it was a cult. The thing that was different about me is that I felt like I had to tell everybody. I wanted to tell everybody because I didn't know what was going on. So it was kind of like a cry for help to be, just giving them a warning like, hey, this is what's going on with me. If I seem weird. Yeah, if I seem weird, because I knew I hadn't, I wasn't socialized at that point. So that first 3 months, I was just telling like the most immediate people to me, like coworkers and stuff. But it did take me a couple months to tell my family because I was like, am I really gone for good? Like, is that what I'm doing here? Like, I don't want to tell them until I know for sure. And then when I did, I mean, my family has been everything. It's hard, like, I want to get emotional now that we're talking about it. But my family has been there for me. They immediately responded from the time that I contacted them. They were so happy. My brother and his wife, like, immediately came out to visit. And when they came to visit, they said, we're moving here. And they wanted to be close, cool. and we live together now, but like that has been huge, and I hope they know that. But
fist bump, sister.
Yeah, I mean, so that's why this show is awesome. Like, I think you're awesome to be here for Tony, and going back to what I was saying, the fact that while she was in it, you were doing your research, and like that's so helpful because my family did a little bit too, especially like my mom had looked into stuff, but anyway. It's just really helpful. It makes it so much easier. And we've talked about this before, but I think a lot of people who try to leave but then return, it's because they don't have that support.
Yeah, and waiting for them when they come
and they're scared. They feel alone. And the thing about when you're in that, you do feel like your life is controlled, like in a good way. Like you feel like things make sense, even though I'm unhappy, even though this is different and weird, there's structure and order to your life because you're doing what you're told. You're not making those decisions for yourself and taking care of yourself.
Some people that might be like the first time in their life they felt that way.
Sure,
like if they come from
absolutely.
A lot of people come from like broken families.
Yeah. That's the thing that I felt, at least in Denver. A lot of the members that came, they were also coming from like a rough place in life. They had a tough situation,
searching for God.
So then you get there,
single
and you're like,
mothers,
this is amazing.
They're people who need help. They're at a place where,
and you think that a church is a safe place to go.
Yeah, so they're trusting, and then so they get very overwhelmed with excitement because they're like like, God answered my prayers, you know, that kind of thing.
There's so many good people there, like good people who have so much potential.
That's what I was asking you guys in the beginning, like, the people at the top are doing it for money, but like you guys and like 99% of everybody in there is truly like
they have no
I
evil
live
intent.
in a community where we like do good things.
And no, they're doing it because they have good hearts.
Can we talk about that? Because one of the things, well, we would call it quote unquote good deeds. So that was like one of our things, you know, like we want to reveal God's glory by like, you know, doing certain volunteer activities, but it was really like so empty and like it wasn't like really sincere. You didn't really feel like you were doing it to like help. You were just doing it as a publicity thing. Yeah. And so there was one story that I wanted to talk about with you about the coat drive that we did.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
Yes,
what
I do.
Was that? Was that 2011?
It was 2012. It was towards the end.
I didn't. Oh, right at the end of 2012.
Yeah, because I didn't remember this until listening to that phone conversation.
Are you okay with us talking about it?
Yeah.
Because that was the only thing on the phone call that I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
This was one of the main things that made my husband want to leave.
Yeah. He and I witnessed this together for sure.
Oh, he did? I didn't know.
Yeah, he and I were standing together when all this stuff occurred and looked at each other like, what the hell is going on?
See, me and Chad love doing these kind of volunteer activities because we did blood drives, sock drives, you know, all these things. And then this was a coat drive that we did. And we love doing those things, like being involved with the community and like really trying to help people. Yeah.
Well, and that's another reason that I got so involved in this is because in my life, as a goal, when I think about why are we here, what the meaning of life, the life that I've always wanted to live and serve is to be a part of something that's bigger than myself, that's going to matter in this life, that's going to make an impact.
For sure.
So I thought, you know, when we were doing these things, I was like, this is it. This is what I'm talking about. Like, we're getting to help people who really need help. And preach at the same time. Yeah, well, like, and I wasn't as excited about that. Right.
That's how I feel like a lot of the people there are. I mean,
like most of the people organizing it. Yeah. Okay, there are some people like us who really wanted to help people, but then there's most people who they just want to like get attention. Yeah. So instead of like really caring about the people that we were trying to help, instead we would all be sitting in an office, like trying to contact the media, and we would like send out news. What are they called?
Like
news
press release.
Oh yeah, press release.
We would send out all these press releases to all these.
They were so fixated on having like the mayor. It was like I always thought like the position. I'm like, you guys don't understand like government in the United States, like because they were like going to target like some of the most ridiculous people, and they thought that was such a big fulfillment of prophecy. If someone like that came,
and everyone's like, who's the mayor?
Yeah, I'm like, I have no idea. Like that one guy, like Dominic, he was like. Yeah, like he came back several times. They were like, hell yeah!
And then they use him in like all the church programs.
Oh yeah, this guy was probably thinking, this is the most attention I've ever received in my life.
Total love bomb. Yeah, total love bomb. But anyway, there was a big hurricane, right?
It was Hurricane Sandy.
Hurricane Sandy
in New York, and so the church hopped on that opportunity, especially with it being in 2012.
Was the orchestra? Did we do
Yeah, we were just beginning. Yep.
Did you guys perform?
Yep. And that was like one of our first kind of big performances, and where we invited everyone from the community, and
hundreds of people.
We were telling them, okay, admission to this concert is bring a coat because those coats are going to go to the victims of Hurricane Sandy. So admission is one coat or more. Well, we collected, it was like 1,230 some, like, we had this like ticker thing, and every time someone donated, we would count it. It got over 1,200. Yeah. And, you know, and
in bags or something, didn't we?
Yeah, bags and boxes. And so we go through this event, and there's like that night, there was just this buzz throughout there. We thought it was so awesome because we're doing something
really exciting.
Pretty normal though too. To me, like this is a normal thing, like not some weird thing like we typically do. Like, and so, so I was just thinking like this is so fun. Like I was on board. It was cool. And I'm like, we're actually gonna help these people. And so then what happened, so this is December of 2012. So then once we go past 2012, those, you know, it's now early 2013, and it's like these coats are still sitting here. And you could just tell that all that enthusiasm that we're feeling on the night of that concert to fast forward a couple months, total deflation, you know, and
we were supposed to take them out.
Well,
the world was supposed to end.
Yeah,
and so you guys are just like,
so there was never any intention. It was like
we were actually supposed to drive them out at the end. I think it was like New Year's Eve or something. We were supposed to drive them out, but then we got a call from Korea and said, "Don't go."
Yeah, because there was especially another awesome deacon who had a very controversial relationship with the pastor, but he was one of my favorite people ever.
He was an older man.
Yeah, older man, military background,
yeah.
had been baptized in Korea, came to Denver later, and just when he saw what was going on in Denver, he was always just struggling. He was just like, what is this?
Yeah.
But he had a truck with a long trailer that had a shipping container just from moving overseas. And he was like, I have got everything we need. I will drive up to New York and donate these coats to all these victims or whatever. Give it to the New York church so that they can distribute. Something like that.
We have a big church in New York.
Yeah, that's like the biggest one. And so I remember being there with those conversations, and this deacon would also come to me and vent a lot. We were friends. And so, but he kept offering to do that, and the pastor was like, no, we don't need that. We don't need that thing. No, we don't. Why you so polka? Some coats. What kind of mind do you have? He's like a generous one, a loving mind. Yeah.
I know. What kind of mind do you have?
So
I
then,
get these coats to the people.
Yeah. So he's denied multiple times. So then it gets to a point where wherever they were being stored, they were like relocated, and we didn't really know where they were. We didn't really think about it.
The thing is, like, sometime in the middle of the night or something, somebody must have moved the coats because they were upstairs, hidden up in like the attic.
Yeah, because there used to be a stage with an attic and that kind of thing, and
so somebody moved them upstairs.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think when
where is it out of sight, out of mind?
Yeah, when me and your husband. So we were doing a construction project of that particular area, and we had to remove that attic, and like we're opening it up and making it this big stage.
And how long later was that? Months later?
Yeah, just months later.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe half a year later, something. Yeah. It had been to the point where we had kind of forgotten about it.
Right.
And then whenever we went up there, because we're going up there to clear all this stuff so we can do this, deconstruct this area, and there's just the whole attic's full of all these coats, and that was one thing we're supposed to move. And well, I think then it was still early enough that then we moved them. So in the sanctuary, there's that second level.
Oh, yeah.
We moved them all up there, and that's when we had forgotten about them, because then the Day of Atonement had come, and we're like cleaning, deep cleaning the church, and that's in October, so almost a year later, right? It's October, and we're cleaning, and we see these coats are still here. Yeah. And this disaster happened almost a year ago at this point. And I remember that like some of the brothers that were helping clean, they just had a free for all with those jackets and all this stuff, but like they were like, yeah, get rid of it, and so it never made it to its destination.
According to sources, I heard a bunch ended up in the trash.
Oh, I bet.
In the dumpster.
I bet. Yeah, I mean, because
because it was the cleaning, if it was like the deep cleaning for the church, they would have just thrown in that big
and they
dumpster.
were not going to take the time to go donate it to somewhere local, anywhere. It's easier to just, we don't have time for that thing. Father's coming soon. Yeah. Why would we go help with physical things?
And in 2013, were they still kind of saying that?
So... Well, when the feast was coming up, like, it's just a different mentality there, regardless if the prophecy didn't happen or not.
Every feast is
but at this point, they were telling us, by this point...
At that point, it was our fault. Like we weren't ready yet.
Yeah, so Father's late in coming because we're not ready. We haven't repented yet.
Yep. The bridegroom is late in coming.
Yeah, so... Father's given us more time to prepare.
This doesn't make sense. Why isn't this made-up prophecy that we made up?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
But here's the thing about what happened right after 2013. Because I don't know if you remember this, but like right around New Year's Day, we had a big meeting and like Mother called. And so we're listening, and she was explaining. At that time, she was explaining... It's still 2012 according to the Bible.
Oh, I remember that.
It's still, and in Korea, like, our New Year hasn't happened.
Right.
And,
so we were like, it's a sacred calendar.
And we're like, that makes sense. Yeah. Oh, okay, so technically.
Yeah.
And so they were just stringing us along at that point.
It out,
Then, after we passed the Korean and Biblical New Year, then they're like, it's your fault. But they did also start saying that it was fulfilled spiritually, and how really the original meaning of that 2012 prophecy is that all the materials were supposed to be gathered, and that happened. Look at all the people that got baptized. It was fulfilled.
But then why are they still preaching?
Yeah, it's like, why are we still here then? Because you guys also explained that when we did this, it's done, and we're out of here.
God's work is done, right?
Yeah, so anyway.
I'm so glad you guys didn't kill yourselves.
Oh my God.
See how that is the end result in some of those other...
Right. Well, you can see how that could happen, like Jonestown. Like, you can definitely see how somebody in really bad, like, really criminals get that kind of power, how that can happen.
Yeah. Well, and it's like what that girl, Michelle, that does the examining site, I was watching a video yesterday, and they were talking about this, and she just made a very valid point about how in those groups, when it's happened, it's because the government has been kind of watching them, and they get paranoid. Yeah, they get that negative attention because they're looking into them like, these people are pretty shady, you know, and right before they're about to be arrested or whatever, then that's when these things have occurred, and it's like, who knows? I mean, right now, for the most part, in large part, nobody knows about this group. No one really cares. Like, they're not that big.
Don't put that on us emotionally.
What's that?
Don't put that on us emotionally.
Oh, why? Because
something happens and we're, like, doing the podcast.
No,
God.
And then we're like, oh, shit, if we would have just not talked about it.
Yeah, we jinxed it. Put it out into the universe, and now it's manifested.
No, we're putting it out into the universe. Don't ever
don't
do that.
Yeah.
It's a bad idea.
And I never felt that they were evil like that, because they weren't physically abusive.
I don't know.
Like Scientologists, they will physically abuse people that try to leave or whatever.
I noticed they also tend to abuse children a lot. And Chad worked closely with the children.
That was it. Yeah,
and I don't think there was child abuse. Other cults.
The way you said it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, like other cults who tend to do those extreme things. Yeah. You see a lot of, like, sexual abuse of the children, and that wasn't something that I ever saw.
No, because, and there was a time where I got to be, like, the director of the kids whenever I was avoiding being a teacher for the adults, and then I put them in charge of kids. I was like, hell yeah. And I can say that me and the other deaconess, who was, like, also a director, we put our heart and soul into that. We cared about the kids, and one thing we shared in common is that the church didn't really seem to care about the kids. And that was a sad thing, because it seemed like, although they would provide free childcare and stuff like that, kids were secondary to the adults. Like, they weren't tithing. Yeah, it's like they would separate the parents from their kids and just focus on that parent to raise them up and to get them committed. But the kids, like, they did. I just feel like that's one thing, is like, no one really loved the kids. Like, they didn't really care about their well-being because they keep them there so late.
There were a few people like you.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, there were a few people who took care of the kids that really loved them.
Yeah, so that was the thing that I was happy to be given that opportunity, because
but they're just a hindrance to the gospel.
Right. They're looked at as a hindrance. Yeah. And we didn't, want to give that impression. Like, when we were in charge of it, I mean, we remodeled.
That's not a good way for a kid to feel.
Yeah. I mean, we really tried to develop a curriculum that would help them just learn, but also, like, we raised money to, like, remodel the rooms that they were in and try to make it comfortable.
They had to come up with their own money.
Yeah, we paid for that ourselves. Like,
it's like, where's the money that you gave for tithe and offerings to help the church work?
Yeah, because that's the thing. The money was not going to go towards helping the kids if we had asked.
So you're giving your tithe and offering, and then on top of that, you're paying for all this other stuff.
We're paying for the food to feed the kids, like their snack time. Right. But we would try to give them nap time. We would try to, like, help their quality of life. Right. And but the thing is, even though we did all that stuff, like especially remodeling the rooms, at any point in time, we would lose those rooms for some other event that was going on, or like. So we never got the rights. Like, at any point in time, we had to be with being like, you guys need to go downstairs because we have a seminar this week and people need to sleep in these rooms or whatever. All kinds of stuff. So
the kids' rooms were turned into, like, bunk beds.
Eventually, like, it failed because once Jubilee started happening, they started ramping back up with focusing on 2015.
That's when I got confused. With Jubilee.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Because I would always just be sitting there like, are we really doing this again already? Where did this come? Why
like
we never ever talked about
memory
this?
Of 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like move on.
I used to say to Tony, if 2012 comes and goes and you're still around, are you going to leave the church? She's like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's just unquestionable.
On the New Year's Day on 2013, and I call you, and your ass is still here on Earth. Are you?
Yeah.
And she was like, that's not going to happen. And I kept saying,
you can call me, I'm not going to answer because I'm not going to be here.
Totally, that's how she was. And then it was just like, well.
Yeah.
Well,
but
more.
Yeah, so that was the thing. So in 2014, that's when I decided to start going back to school, and this is like, this is happening before Jubilee's being taught. Jubilee happened later in the year, but like I said, after 2012, I really wanted to start focusing on my career because that was my feeling. Like January of 2013, and we're still here. I was like, oh fuck! Like I need to do something with my life. I need to make money.
I need a job.
I need like I'm broke. I barely worked in 2012, and she was the one who was doing the work and making the money because they had me so involved or whatever, and because doing mass baptisms on buses and stuff like that. But anyway, 2013, I'm like, I gotta, and I just wanted to. I was tired of being broke, and so by 2014, I was like, you know what, I need to go back, finish my degree, and create an opportunity for myself. And anyway, and going back to school was instrumental as well because it allowed me to be around normal people, but also it gave me the permission to think again because it was required in universities. That's a part of college education. You learn how to problem solve. You learn how to think for yourself and do all that kind of stuff. I had taken a psychology class that really made an impact because it was talking about scientific hypotheses, scientific testing, and it was talking about fallacies as well. And so one thing that I can just remember from that textbook is like it was saying how anytime there's an extraordinary claim, there also needs to be extraordinary evidence. Mm-hmm. And when I heard that, it was talking about scientific testing.
Yeah.
But it hit me so hard because I was like, it made me think about the church. Because I'm like, here's all of our extraordinary claims. Christ came back. Right. There's a Heavenly Mother. Mm-hmm. There was supposed to be this 2012 thing. Mm-hmm. There's all this stuff, and it's like, where's the evidence? Like, nothing has ever happened. Mm-hmm. And that really did something for me. But I also got punished for going back to school because I lost my baptism authority and announcing authority. So being an announcer is like the guy during each service.
I feel like this is the beginning way of shunning.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. This is when I started losing respect from the pastor. Right. And, but being an announcer is the person who chooses the songs before the service and that everyone sings together. They are like the officiator of the service. Like they kind of keep the ball rolling.
You're like the MC.
Yeah, the MC.
Okay.
And so that was one thing that deacons do.
That's a big blessing.
Yeah, it's a big thing, right?
That's cool. That's what you did for every service?
We would like rotate, but it would be like I would be morning service or I would be whatever, but there was like a schedule.
Yeah.
So I got taken off of that, and I couldn't baptize because he told me he was like, I heard you going back to school. I was like, yeah, and I was like excited. I was like, yeah, I am. Yes, I am. It's great. And he's like, I think then. If then you will not be an announcer and you cannot baptize. And I was like, okay. It didn't hurt me and I honestly felt relieved and I think he saw that.
But do you feel like he said it to hurt you?
Yeah, of course. I was supposed to be ashamed. I was supposed to quit school. I was supposed to just respond that way and be like, no, not my blessings.
Right.
To me, I was like, cool, yeah, I'm trying to get this degree done. Thanks. I don't have to be here every day now. Cool, thanks for understanding.
Yeah, for sure.
But
do you mind sharing one more story?
Sure.
If you want.
Yeah.
About how right before 2012.
So that story that you're talking about. So this is in 2012. So as Tony has explained that about the feast and all the services that we keep, but one thing I don't think you've mentioned yet is how beyond that, there are other special days in the church, and it's the birthday of the Heavenly Mother, and also is the Ascension Day of
Christ.
Yeah. So anyway, so we also have services on those days. And it's, you know, it doesn't matter what day of the week it is, like that, because they
it's
can
like
fall
a 9 a.m. service on like a Tuesday.
Yeah, like, so
you
gotta miss work, and you go.
That's
and
true.
Also, all the branch churches, they come to Denver, so they travel, and they come to Denver.
They travel far. They come from Colorado Springs.
They come from North Dakota. Well,
yeah,
I guess for those kind of things, they would let them stay there, but
yeah.
Anyway,
Wyoming,
10 to 20 hour drives,
yeah.
you know. But anyway, so on this particular day, it's November 2012, so we're approaching the end of the year, and so the pastor is giving this sermon, and he would love to go deep and reach so far in these prophecies, and I think that was the first time that we had ever heard a sermon about Jubilee, and because he was connecting the first year that the founder kept Passover in 1962, and we're now in 2012, that was 50 years, and so he was explaining, you know, very briefly, though, about the year of Jubilee, but he was explaining, he was very, very forceful and suggestive that any day now, we're out of here. Like, we need to wake up and get ready, because, you know, the end of the year is a month away, and it's going to happen. And so everyone is, like, kind of shocked, but also, like, terrified, so they're immediately after the service, they weren't preaching. But I didn't go, and there's 3 other leaders. There are 2 missionaries, a deaconess, and myself, and then the pastor. We're all hanging back. And I noticed they're talking about something. I go sit down, and we're having this private conversation, and the deaconess is concerned. She's like, that really sounded like you're saying any day now, and like our members from Colorado Springs are like, I don't know if they know how to take that. Like, they've never heard anything like that direct. And he just kind of cut her off, and he was like, look, I'll try not to imitate him. It's so hard for me not to. But he basically said, he's like, look, you know, our father taught about 2012. He said, if we go even one day past 2012, the Bible is not true.
Oh.
And the founder's name, he is not God. And he was that confident.
He said that in front of you?
Yeah, to the 4 of us. And I remember one of the missionaries who was very close to him. And I thought he was a cool guy, but maybe he's not so good. I'm not sure. But anyway, loved him. But he just looked at me and he's like, ooh, boy. You're like, just totally like, kind of like excited. And I'm over here like, oh shit. Like, he said it.
That's really scary.
And it was like, he was that confident. So then I went and I was like, I guess I better go preach. As much as I hate it, I guess I got to go out. And I actually did technically like bear fruit, even though I didn't study with them or find them, but my preaching partner did, so I got credit too. But I ended up baptizing. Yeah, it's like, that's, if there's anyone I got credit for, that's usually how it happened. Is my partner found them. But
I'll do the baptizing.
Yeah, and I'm like, cool, I got credit for that. But
your name goes in a book that says that
and they get sent to Korea.
Yeah.
It's like the book of life.
Yep.
You know, who's your messenger?
Yeah.
And everyone cared about that because you're getting graded on all that stuff. But so anyway, but he said it directly, and I mean that was terrifying, and that's another reason why on January 1st, 2013, I'm like, Pastor said it's not true, and I wondered how he was doing. You know, I'm just kind of like, what's gonna happen? Right. What's gonna happen now? You know. Because I assumed that a lot of people would leave. Because you just
look at them in awe, like, oh my God, he has so much faith. He has such strong faith. I was reading this thing that said, like, sometimes seeing other members with such strong faith is more, like, gives you more confidence than the Bible study itself.
Sure.
So, like, when you see, like, the missionaries and, like, the pastors and how beautiful and, like, strong faith they have, you're like, oh, I want to be like that.
When you guys go back and, like, look at the Bible studies, do you feel like... Do you feel the way that I feel when I was listening?
You explained it so good.
What's that?
In that video, you explained it so clear about the Green Book.
Oh, okay.
Because there's other books that they use, and you said it's not a Bible church. You said it's not a Bible-based church.
Yeah, it's not. It is.
It's based on that other book.
it's based on the founder.
Right.
It is not based on the Bible. It's based on the founder's interpretation of the Bible.
Yeah,
and
like
the way they put the scriptures together.
The way that they're put together like that. Like, to me, when I would hear those, I'm like, that just doesn't right. Like, why would the Bible be written like that, where you have to bounce from here?
But in reality, the members don't really know the Bible. They don't really know the context. They don't really know the history or anything like that.
And see, and I had that foundation going into it. I read my Bible a lot growing up, right? So I had a really good foundation. And so, but here's the thing that would happen to me while I was in it, and especially whenever I was a teacher and like I was real studious then. But if I ever just tried to read the Bible like normal,
from like start to finish,
from start, I would it would cause me to struggle in my faith, because I would read it and be like, I don't understand how, based on what this is saying, how does it match up with what we're saying? And so eventually I would just be like, I can't read the Bible. Like, I just can't. And so what you do is you just read the other books that are provided. Yeah. And that tells you.
Piece together the Bible
and it's a very small fraction of what's actually in the Bible. Yeah. It's very selected. But that's the thing, is that nobody, as a non-member, like for people who come in here and who study, like they think like, wow, these people know so much about the Bible. No, they don't. Right. They just know that they know the church doctrine. Right. They know what those books say, and that's how every single Bible study is structured. It comes from that material, not from the Bible. Right. It's not like there's never a person who comes up with a Bible study from their own personal studying. Right. Yeah. The pastor would be the only one.
I remember her studying on how to teach.
Yeah, I mean, it's given to
follow a syllabus.
We call it a syllabus. It's not a syllabus. Right. Like, that's such the wrong word to call it. A syllabus talks about a curriculum, right? This is a script. Right. It's a script is what it is.
That's right.
And it tells you what to say. Right. And that's how you learn.
What order, what verses.
And she would get offended because I told her that sometimes she talks in broken, like she sounds like
English
my
parents
is her
said the same
second
thing.
language.
Yeah.
And she's like, that is so rude. I would be so lucky to have a second language. And I'm like, but you don't. And
you're pretending. You act like your original language is not your original language. Where's your accent coming from?
It's because we spend a lot of time with Koreans.
Yeah.
And I think some of the way that they teach you how to teach the Bible
because
in broken
the pastor
English
is the one who's teaching us, and so and he was a very powerful teacher. And so everyone thought if they just talked like him and said it like him, it would have the same effect on the listener. And because there were so many people that the moment they would speak somewhat normal, but the moment they start teaching, boom, accent shows up, and it's what are you doing?
I hear her sometimes, and I've been trying to hear if you're doing it
I hope I still don't have it.
No, like when she's talking specifically about a Bible study, that I see her too, sort of.
Yeah.
I see her
that makes sense.
Go not all the way into it, but I see it coming out.
It's this mode. It becomes this personality, because also, like, it doesn't matter if you enjoy public speaking or if you're good at it, you're forced to do it. Yeah. So I think for some people what happens psychologically is that they have to become this different person, and they have to change the way they speak. It becomes this different persona. I'm in teacher mode now. And
for sure.
And
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and that's what happens. I mean, yes, you totally lose your own original identity when you're in there. You have a different version of yourself, and that's one thing that my parents have always pointed out. They're like, while you were in there, like, yes, I changed the way I spoke, but also they were like, you were you, but you're not you. It was a shell of you. Like, outwardly it was you, but that wasn't you. And that, I could not agree more. I'm fully aware of that. And I think, I later became embarrassed by it because I knew it, because I'd see it in everybody else. And so when I stopped teaching, that's when I was able to really kind of step back and look at everyone and observe, like, how ridiculous this is. I'm like, and then just hearing everyone, like, recite everything, because it's just over and over and so repetitive, that just hearing it enough is what made me be like, this is bullshit. Like, this is not real. Like, I've heard this explanation so many times that it doesn't make sense anymore. Like, I like snapped out of it, and there's just like, but I just thought, because I loved the people, like, that was also my social life, and like my family, that it's like, I guess I can still exist here even if I don't believe.
Right.
You know, like I
And
want to go.
Community.
I want to see my friends, like how, and I was the kind of person that always tried to like joke around with everybody. I don't know if you saw me that way, but like when I think of how I tried to be, like I would just try to be like.
Everybody loved Chad.
I just try to be fun and keep people happy because one thing
that was like us. Like I had to explain how like me and Justin's style wasn't really like.
Yeah, you guys weren't hard asses. I was not either.
Same with him too, and I think that's why we had so much trouble. We went to the house churches because
like I can't tell people what to do. Yeah. Like I hate that. I
don't want to fight with people all day.
Yeah, I don't want to debate. Yes, I don't want to argue. Yes. I want to be your friend. Yes, you know, and so that's why that was a huge.
Yeah, that just wasn't our style.
And but when I went to Korea one time, they told me that was a blessing, like this thing of my ability to make people laugh. Because I would always do imitations of people. Like if they had a real distinct way of talking, I would do that. And everyone would be like, "Oh, do Pastor again," and I'd be like, "Oh, keep it down." Like, but that was always my thing because I loved those people, and I had believed that even if we weren't in the church. I always imagined I would still hang out with him anyway. You know, like that we would get along outside of the walls, you know, and
which is pretty true because look at us.
Yeah, you for sure, but there were some people that have left that just turned out not being the case, and that was sad. And that was a part of when I was out in that first year, really feeling alone because it was because things, you know, when people were leaving, they didn't want to talk to me or hang out, and so thankfully I had people to talk to, but that whole first year, what I want to say about that is, I really summarize 2016 as my year of guilt. That was my kind of first initial thing, and I spent that year trying to contact a lot of my old friends because I'm like, man, I've been in this place for 7.5 years and I've missed out on so much of their lives, and I felt obligated. I felt like I owed everybody an apology.
It's almost like you guys are like recovering drug addicts that have to come back and like apologize.
Yeah, well, because it's like
you're not.
Well,
but,
and the thing that was weird is that I had this idea that while we were in that group, life for everyone else was just on pause. Like nothing was happening with them. Right. And so whenever I got out, I was thinking that I would be able to just pick up right where I left off.
Jump back into their lives.
Yeah, jump back in, and then I would realize like all this stuff happened for them too, and a lot of people didn't even really notice that, like they didn't know what was going on. I thought everybody knew. I thought like everyone from my hometown like talked about it. A lot of people didn't care. Like I mean, some cared, but like. You know, like they were living their life.
There's a lot of that coming back at Tony now. Yeah. Like people are like, I had no idea this happened.
And so when I talked to them, they were fascinated and they wanted to hear my story or something. But I just felt like I owed them an apology. And then finally, after that year, like full year of being out, is when I then started like being active online to like say some stuff. Then that's when I entered the anger phase, and I was mad about my experience. I was mad about what they had done to us, but I was also getting mad at some of the people I was reaching out to from my past life because there were some people who made me feel guilty and like as if I did owe them an apology, even though they never once tried to be my friend or any of that. Like they were those types of friends who weren't ever initiating anything all those years. There were some who did do that, and you know, and I'm not talking about them. So anyway, it got to a point where I'm like, you know, fuck you. I'm not going to apologize for anything. Like, actually, I don't owe anyone an apology. Actually, I deserve an apology. And
How come you guys didn't come get me?
Yeah, like, I was just so mad. But, so, and a lot of kind of like my coping mechanisms early on, I would say, weren't the healthiest, you know, because I didn't know who, I was still trying to figure out who I was at the time. Because I had forgotten all those years. And so immediately when I left, I kind of had gone back to bad habits because that's all I could remember of myself was like, oh, before I joined Army, I like to party, and so maybe I'll just do that, and then it got to the point where I was like, that's not the best way, and so that eventually led me to finding my love and passion of nature and hiking, and because I was like, I need a healthy thing, right, and there was someone who had kind of helped reintroduce me to that, and it made me remember, like, this is who I am. This is why I moved to Colorado in the first place. It was like, I wanted to. I always had dreamt of being a landscape photographer for National Geographic, and I was like, I want to. And so, as in high school and stuff, I was like, I got to live in Colorado someday.
That makes sense. You always put the most beautiful pictures on Facebook.
That was
really good work.
I always loved photography, and so anyway, when I started hiking again, that's when I was able to find a healthy hobby, but when I would be out there, hiking is a great activity because it does put you in a meditative state, like saying a distance runner or something like that. So you know, and it's this physical activity. So it puts you in this wavelength, and especially being out in nature, I could get to this like really nice place where I could think about it, and I just started doing. I kind of coined this phrase, but I call them trail prayers. Because I'm not someone who's religious anymore or anything, but I just kind of thought of like, if I just get what's on my mind, if I just get it out into the universe, and instead of praying to a God, I would talk to myself.
Yeah.
I would pray to me. And that's another thing, like yoga is helpful to kind of help like be more mindful and spiritual and that kind of thing. So whatever was bothering me, whatever if I was struggling or if I was mad, I would say it as if I was talking directly to that person. And each time, like I would do a hike, I would choose really challenging, hard hikes because that was also therapeutic, and it helped me build my confidence because it's like, if I can do this, then I can do anything. And so, and I would think about the church, and like it just helped me get more confidence to be away, and just shape and really figure out like, who do I want to be though going forward? What kind of life would I be happy with? What does it look like?
And it gives you that like God space without the like shit.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
without
it's like
the drama of like being in a cult.
Yeah, absolutely. I get to choose.
Yeah.
I get to choose.
You get
what's
to
going
like
on.
resonate on that level because that's a confusing feeling when you're like, I don't really believe in God anymore, but I do feel like magical and connected.
Well, it's the same. That's the way I describe it. Is like the way it makes me feel is exactly the way has ever made me feel when I've ever been religious. You know. Like, I get that same sense of inspiration.
But see, that's crazy
love.
Because when you're in the church, you don't think you can ever feel happy outside of the church. But then when you get out and you're like, oh my God, I can feel peaceful out here.
There
are
so
nice
many
people
things.
out here.
So many things that will
like,
allow you to feel that same exact thing.
We used to have that conversation a lot. You would say, like, it must be so, like, sad for you to not believe that you're going to go to heaven and that you don't have, and I'm like, it's not really. I feel like pretty happy. I feel like
I just don't
connect.
think about it. Yeah. I just don't think
I
about
resonate on like a God level when I need to, not like that I build, I get that like inspirational. I feel like the birds are singing, like you still feel
I
those
appreciate
feelings.
life. Yeah. Like I appreciate living life in all forms, like the being connected to living things.
Which you never had when we were in there. Because we were talking about how there would be days when we wouldn't even leave the church.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we would go preaching, but other than that, like, you
like
don't
you
spend
are not,
time outside
you are not
in the sunshine.
You're not getting exercise. You're not getting any of those kind of things. But that's the thing is, like, it puts me in that place where I feel that same exact feeling where that feeling of being inspired by the Holy Spirit. I'm like, now I would call it Mother Nature. That's my spirituality, and that's my sanctuary. So that's been a really nice way to kind of fill that void, because I'm sure a lot of people don't know how to resolve that, and that's another reason they go back, is like, I feel this emptiness or something. And so to me, it's like my religion is that I get to be the one in charge. You know, like I get to decide what's best for me.
In charge of my own mind.
That sounds very similar to kind of how I see Tony beginning to do.
To me, it's a beautiful thing because, then you're not.
It's a real freedom.
It's a real freedom, and you don't feel this sense of guilt because you're not thinking about sin. You're just thinking about being true to yourself. Right. Like, what do I need?
Do you feel like you're extremely simple now that you're out? I don't either. Like, they make you feel like you're, like, so simple.
I'm a good person.
Like,
I try to do right by everybody, and to me, it's like, I feel like I'm the best version of myself that I've ever been in my entire life.
I feel like I'm a better person now than I've even in there.
Way better.
Because I could see you struggling with having to choose between, like, the family wanting you to be at an event or something. I just saw, like, so much like conflict in you all the time, and
it's not fun.
You have a freedom now to say like, I don't want to go do that thing, but it's not because my church is telling you that. Like, I'm setting a boundary, or I'm not
boundaries
doing this
are
thing
huge
because I don't want to do that thing, and which is like perfectly okay and like acceptable as a grown adult to say those things. You know.
Another thing in the first year though of being out that I really struggled with was just allowing myself to relax. I always felt like that I had to be doing something, and that was something that someone had pointed out, because if they would call me and it's a Saturday and I'm literally just on the couch doing nothing, I had to feel like this person could tell that I was making up a story that I'm doing something when I really wasn't, you know, and they pointed that out, and I'm like, oh, you're so right. Like,
I remember one time at the small church, pastor didn't want to put chairs in the lobby because he didn't want people sitting around.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Talking and gathering. Because that's not really what you do. You don't sit.
No.
You don't relax. You don't waste time.
You don't have foolish conversation.
No. So to just sit around, no.
Because that can soften your mind and cause you to be comfortable. Like being comfortable is the no-no of that
that's
place.
That's why you guys felt sinful. I mean, that's why you thought you would be sinful.
Well, and that's why his strategy is to always have something going on.
Yeah.
And especially the construction projects. Like, so in terms of if prophecy was kind of quiet at that time, what are we doing? We're building something.
We
dancing. We're pointing our fingers and going.
I really. You remember it. YouTube videos coming soon.
Yeah, we should connect it. Can you do that in the notes?
Yeah, put a link in it. Do it, because here's the thing.
I have already.
Here's what's hard for me with this podcast is being so legal.
Right.
Because I want to shout their name. Like I want to say exactly who's who and what's what.
And I'm sure we'll be fine, but we're just like, that's not really.
I totally get it. I would not want the headache.
You know what I mean?
I wouldn't want the headache of finding an attorney and spending money on. No, I don't want that kind of drama in my life.
Because I don't think that we would lose. I don't think we're doing anything outside of our bounds.
We are protected by the First
For
Amendment.
sure,
we are totally okay.
I just don't even want to begin that process.
Yeah.
I don't want to be paranoid.
Because
somebody's following me or something.
Yeah.
So you totally.
I do remember that I was also afraid when I first left, because I wasn't sure if they were just
work or something.
that they were just gonna show up and try to get me to come back.
I didn't know where I lived, so
when I used to live with Tony when she first, the first year or two,
when I was in it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And maybe you got sick or something. I don't remember, but you didn't go for a few days, and they came to our apartment looking for
Really?
Yeah, I think your first baby was sick, and so you were out for 3 days. He was puking or something. It was when both of them got kind of sick. Remember?
Oh yeah.
And we were just held up in our apartment with sick babies. And they came to the door looking for you. And they said, well, we're just worried about them. We haven't seen them at church for a few days. And I was like, those motherfuckers are weird.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know a lot then. I
and that's the thing. That was a common thing, that if someone didn't show up or whatever, you go
I'm trying to think, I didn't go for days. Whoa, I'm
for service. We were sick. I remember us all being
even if you were deadly sick,
no, it's okay if you spread it. You come in and get your blessing. I don't know what they're doing
with COVID now, but
I've wondered that too, where it's
I bet a lot of people.
Because think about how often they shake hands and how close proximity.
Service at home, I don't know, but.
I'm sure they're having a field day though, with it being a sign of the end. Look at this pestilence,
Right.
But no, I remember being terrified, and because I thought they would show up someday, or that they would call me. Luckily and surprisingly, none of that happened. They let me go, and I think it's what you're saying, going back to when I started going back to school. I think he knew I was a lost cause.
It was that shunning.
Yeah, and he's forget him. He's not worth it or anything.
And that's so devastating.
How sad, because he spent all those years
Yeah.
I actually had a deep love for Pastor, and his wife.
It's a love.
And in a way, I do still, which is
I have good days and bad days about that, but
it's very strange.
But so one thing I would do though early on, really early after leaving. There was times where I would drive past the church just to kind of go spy and see what's going on. Yeah. But I would be terrified.
That they would see you?
Yeah, and I would be so I'd be pulling up, and as soon as I get there, I'd be like, brrr.
Okay, I've been in a breakup before. I've definitely done
that.
Yeah,
totally.
It's not weird.
But I would just,
a breakup.
I was still I wanted to see if I could find something that somehow would expose them in some kind of way, but it was just normal.
Right.
You know, late at night, people coming and going.
For sure.
And, but anyway, I was just so afraid and I couldn't face them.
Right.
And that kind of leads me to another thing I want to talk about as part of the recovery thing. Some things I've gone through that have been challenging and part of the process. It's about nightmares. So I don't know when I started having them. Maybe it was within the first year, maybe after, but I would have a reoccurring nightmare. And the nightmare would be, you know, I would start off and it'd be like friends from all throughout my life, and I'm talking and, you know, like mingling and everything. But then that group of people, they would morph into people from the church. Yeah. But it would still be like, I'd be like excited to see him in the dream, like, oh, hey, oh, what's up? But because I wouldn't realize where I was at, because it's almost like everything's dark in the dream except for the faces, you know? And when I would realize who they were, then suddenly, like, then the walls, like, you know, come in or fall in around me, and then I'm like in the church, and then I start panicking because I'm like, what the hell am I doing back here? And then everything changes where it's not this pleasant dream anymore, and then everyone's trying to keep me there. And I would always the struggle is trying to escape from the building, and, you know, trying to find a door that's unlocked, you know, but they're all like behind me, and I'm just trying to get out, and then I wake up and just be in a panic and a sweat, and that went on for years. Well, so once I did my ritual and burned my stuff, you know, after that I just stopped having dreams for like 2 years, and but now I've been having dreams about them again lately after listening to the podcast. No, it's okay, because here's why. Now in my dreams, it still remains a good situation. I was explaining this to my mom and sister recently, and like, now it's like I have a control of what happens in the dream. And so here's an example that I thought it was a funny dream, but the scenario was that I'm in this building, and maybe it's like a preparation day, but like people are like kind of running around getting things ready.
Preparation day is Friday.
Friday before Sabbath, you're getting making preparations.
Yeah, okay.
And anyway, I was able to like walk and just kind of listen to people's conversations like group by group. And there's this one missionary, a Korean missionary and Korean deaconess, the one who is in charge of the orchestra, and his wife. And so they're talking, and the scenario is that he's rebuking her because, you know, she was well known for being a very good singer, right?
Beautiful.
But in this dream, he's calling her out because I guess they were rehearsing, and he's like, you really not good singer. You lip sing. And she's like, no, I don't. And she's like, I'll prove it. And she starts singing, and it's awful. And so it revealed that this whole time she's just been lip singing. And and I was like, and I just like walk off like kind of chuckling, like, those two are always at it. And then I come up, and then there's Pastor. And Pastor and some like other, you know, teachers and members, and I remember at first being like, oh shit, but then I was like, hey Pastor, should we be out preaching right now, or is it okay if we just go-kart instead? And then like this go-kart track shows up, and he looks and is like, go Cots. And I was like high-fiving the brothers like, he's in a good mood today.
I love it.
And then I was able to just casually walk outside, and then there's like this whole different situation, like I won't go into that, it's just some weird random situation, and then I ended after this weird thing occurred, and there's like this whole crowd watching what's happening outside, I'm like, wow, that's weird. Man, I gotta pee. And like, and then I woke up, I'm like, oh, I gotta pee.
Yeah. That's good.
But yeah. And it ended up, I woke up and I was like, hey, that's a breakthrough. Awesome. And it's just this funny thing.
Hey, we gave him a dream breakthrough.
Yeah. So now it's not this like scary.
Congratulations.
I even had a dream last night.
That's common about nightmares, that people have a lot of nightmares coming
up. I even had a dream last night. Well, some of the dreams that I've had them a lot lately. And each time though, what's happened is that when I'm encountering Pastor in the dream, I'm finding ways to like outsmart him and like and to like deceive him but like I make him believe I'm like about to do something that they want me to do, but I have this plan of like how I'm gonna get out and get away, and that's like And I'm like, oh, you believe me? Fell for it. You know, like I'm driving my car, and then my car turns into something else, and it's a different dream. But like, but that's been. I'm really thankful for that, because now when I have them, it's just not scary anymore. And I'm like, it's interesting because it's in my subconscious, and that's why these, you know, because I think at first too, I would question the dreams and get nervous about it. I'm like, are they trying to contact me through my dreams? And, you know, really like worry.
I used to think that too. Yeah.
And now it's just like, I know enough about the human mind to understand why dreams occur. It's like, God's not trying to contact me.
You're trying to process your shit.
Yeah, it's like, it's still, and that's how it lets me know that I still have healing to do, because they're still occurring, you know. And so, and I honestly thought I was in a great place prior to listening to your podcast. And I'm like, as you have mentioned some stories that I've kind of forgotten about, it's just kind of true. I'm like, oh man, and like maybe I'm not 100% yet, but
I wonder if we ever will be. I wonder if it's something that we'll always have our whole life.
And I've always heard from like therapists and just stuff like where it can take the same amount of time that you're in it to like fully recover, or in some cases for some people like even double that. So so the point being is like, be patient with yourself and like give yourself credit and don't feel like you have to be.
Like you guys are on the other side of the hard part.
And just like look at it as a journey, and don't put the pressure on yourself that you have to be at some certain point at this point in time. Like there's no like that's unnecessary. You know, it is up to you to define your own happiness, and it's up to you to like love yourself and do what's necessary to heal. Like, don't ignore it. Is the main thing. Just don't shove it out.
I spent a lot of time ignoring it.
I get it because it's heavy and it's weird and you know all that kind of stuff. But
it is weird.
I felt like for like the first year, it wasn't that you were like ignoring it. I felt like you were just kind of like dazed, just like
you're in shock.
Okay, like I'm going to this birthday party on a Saturday. That's
like, I don't feel completely great being here, but okay.
But like those are the awkward things I'm talking about.
Yeah, no,
like I should be at church, I think, but I don't want to.
Do you mind sharing your story about your ritual?
Yeah. I love that. So. One thing that I think is a positive that has come out of being in this group is like learning about how to make goals. I sucked at it while being in the group because they were not my personal goals.
We're constantly making goals there.
Yeah, but that was one thing that the pastor is very skilled in, is like having a very clear, defined focus for the year, but then making everybody else be a part of that. I could not do that when I was in that group, but after leaving, I've been able to do that for my own life. Because I am able to like focus on something that I care about, and I make my whole year about it. Like I think of the year as a theme, and so like 2017, the whole thing.
Yeah, with the new year coming up.
Yeah, and so instead of doing a resolution where you beat yourself up because you're like, make it something fun. Like that's gonna make you a better. So because there's things that are required depending on what the goal is. You do have to make those changes that people want to make when they say my New Year's resolution is to stop doing this or whatever. Don't think of it like that. Think of what you want to do, because naturally you will make those changes in order to succeed at whatever that goal is.
Right.
So I had made so anyway, each year like had this different focus, and a lot of it was based around like my outdoor goals, stuff like that. And so in 2019, the focus of that year was really, I kept telling my mantra was like, go further, go beyond. And so the focus of that year was getting better at skiing and backpacking, doing solo backpacking trips as often as possible, and hiking as many big mountains that we have in the state as I could. But I noticed that I had the church Bible or books and stuff, like they had been in the corner for a long time because I held on to them thinking like, oh, these might be handy to help someone later in life, but then it just got to the point where I'm like, I doubt I'm gonna, where's the opportunity? It's like, I think it's doing more damage lingering around.
Looking at them all the time.
Yeah, I'd rather just get rid of them. So what I did, each time when I had a trip planned, I would take 2 to 3 books, and the whole thing was like, I would hike this really hard hike and complete it, and then when I get to my campsite at night, as a way to celebrate like conquering this mountain, and I looked at the mountains like metaphorically, and in relation to the church, like how they're my mountain that I have to like conquer, right? And so at the end of the day, I would take those Bibles and I'd use books to use them as kindling for the fire. And like, that's cool. So I was ripping out page by page, get my fire going, and then when it would get big enough, then I would just have this special like kind of ceremony to myself, and I'd look at whatever that particular book was, and I'd kind of remember what it meant to me, or what, you know, what the content of the book is, and then I would eventually then just have this moment, and I'd just watch it burn, and then I'd just laugh and kind of be like, oh, these assholes knew what I was doing. Like, like I felt like I was sticking it to them. Like, hell yeah, I got you. So I did that just over the year, and I saved the notorious or infamous Green Book for my very final trip. And I actually had 3 books. It was that book of Regulations of Ceremony. That's like a very only deacons get that book. Right. I got that one. I had my new song book, and then the Green Book. And I had 2 buddies with me, and I let them both burn one apiece. And that was another thing about it too. I let like some of these books I gave to people I really cared about, to let, you know, people who were affected by it, and like my brother. And we would have a moment together, and I'd let him burn it too. And at first he was against it, and then when he realized what I was saying, he's like, "Fuck yeah, give that to me." But anyway, so on this final trip, I give my buddy who loved music, I gave him the new song book, and the other guy who has always been jaded by religion his whole life, I gave him this Regulation of Ceremonies book, and I explained to him what it was, and he was like, hell yeah. I mean, I burned it, and so after they went to bed, that's when I had my own special moment with the Green Book, and, you know, because that book's everything to them, and so, anyway, I threw it in there, and I'm watching it burn, and it landed upright. You know, it's standing in the fire like this. And as it's burning, the pages start, like, fanning out. And like, there's a glow from the fire and stuff. And as I'm looking at it, I swear on everything, it changed into, like, the profile of a wolf. And in the Bible, a wolf is a false prophet. Ah. And so that book, as it burned down and decomposed, I saw an image of a wolf. And I was like, no way, you know? And I was like, but how appropriate. Yeah. How appropriate. Yeah. And it's like, because that's exactly what they are. Yeah. And so, but I did that, and the reason we were doing this trip was, like, each one of us had, like, a big life change coming up. Like, one of them was going to be a father. This other guy, like, you know, maybe got a promotion or something. And I was just beginning my journey of trying to pay off my debt from this group. I had avoided it for years. I got into trouble. I was getting subpoenas and stuff for, like, from creditors. And they were going to garnish my wages. So I got a second job. And so that's what was about to begin with me. And so for, you know, pretty much all of 2020, I was working to pay off these debts and stuff. And I'm now almost 100% done. I'm very happy about that, because that was like 20 plus grand, you know, and I'm now down to like 3. So, but I finally got to the point where I'm like, even though these aren't my debts, because I was being rebellious and stubborn, and just thinking that if I felt sorry for myself, that someone else would too, and they'd be like, all right, you don't need it. But it's banks. Banks don't give a shit who swiped the card and seeing your name. So I had to do it, and anyway, but that was the thing, and really from that point on until now, it just really hasn't been anything that I think about. You know, I have a wonderful, wonderful girlfriend now. Give you a shout out, Cindy. I love you.
Oh, I haven't met her.
Yeah, she's in Oklahoma, but that was around the time that we were starting to get to know each other and stuff. And really, like, ever since that ceremony, and like it was like starting this new chapter. And meeting her, like, that's what my focus has been on. It's about the future that I want to have with her. And, you know, I always tell people how happy I am. I guess if there's one thing that could make it better is if she and I didn't have to do long distance, you know. But she encouraged me to come on today. She's awesome. That's awesome. But anyway, it's just...
How exciting you get to, like, experience... love the world.
Yeah, like real love. Like real love. Yes, it's like a real romance, and it's like cool. The healthiest relationship that I've ever had that I think anyone could have. You know, it's awesome. And but really, you know, she listened to the phone recording the other day, but you know, it's something haven't really gone into much detail about with her, but it's because I feel like it's irrelevant. You know, And so...
Oh, God, she's going to be shocked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of these
yeah. But, she's excited to listen. Yeah. And, but that was the thing that she told me. She was like, wow, she's, hearing you talk to someone else who's been in, she's like, it was just kind of mind-blowing because I just hadn't heard any of that stuff. And she wanted to ask me more and everything. And that's the thing that I think is cool about anyone who speaks out. When you do it, you don't really know what kind of effect it's going to have on other people, and you don't know who's going to be listening. Right. And so you really don't think anyone is listening too. I mean, that's how I felt a lot early on, and it's just kind of surprising though of how helpful it is, and like, I mean, there's people who aren't even involved, but it's their family members, and they hear it and they reach out, and it's like, this is amazing. But
we've heard from a few people. That's like, I almost cried when I read one. It was like a family member whose family member's still in there, and I think I cried when I read that email. Yeah. And I was like, just try if you can to be there ready for them when they come out. That's.
And that's the same thing that I think my family, if they could be here, that's what they would say too, is just like...
Be patient.
Be patient, because they realize that I just had to realize on my own. Yeah. Had they done something drastic, like physically remove me from there and hire someone to like deprogram me,
would have been like...
That would have totally killed our relationship. Right. That would have pissed me off so bad.
And reiterated what the church was teaching.
Yeah, exactly. And so the way that I left was exactly the way it needed to be done because it was my own choice. Right. And my family just never lost hope, like we did lose touch, but they saw a difference in me after 2012 and when I was doing the orchestra stuff. They saw like me coming back. That's what they told me. And so they knew it was a matter of time, and then whenever I finally made that phone call, like I said, I mean, even my mom and her husband had come out to visit right away, and we actually met up with my friend who got me involved. We met up with his parents because they were living in Colorado at the time, and we all got together, and she gave me like all these books. She had tons of stuff, and she had written a book about he and I being like a fictional book. But anyway, it was just, that was the best thing that could have happened, is that the family just be responsive when the time came, and not a moment before.
And not angry.
Yeah, not mad at all. Not shaming.
Right.
Like, me and my family shared tons and tons of tears over the years talking about it.
Yeah.
I do think it was, if not the hardest thing, is one of the hardest things that's ever happened to my immediate family, because I'm the middle child. The things that were going on in my family before I joined is like my parents had divorced a year before that. I had a death in the family of my aunt, who was, I really respected her. I had lived with her and my uncle at one point. She died from cancer. Like when we found out, it was very quick, so that happened all around the same time. And so my family had felt broken already. So when I joined, a big thing was that I thought I found the answer. I thought I found the thing that's going to bring...
you were in the perfect moment of your life to hear that message.
Do you feel like...
Okay.
Because I wasn't even looking for church. Right. But everything they said resonated with how I already felt about general Christianity. So I'm like, oh, so there is a problem. Interesting.
Oh, you have a conspiracy in there?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, really? So the Pope is the Antichrist. Yes. That's interesting.
Right.
So I just thought that everything that I thought they were the solution, and so it was really hard. I expected my family to be so excited and joyful because they were Christians.
Guess what?
And I was someone who was away from church, so I thought they'd just be happy, one, that I was going to church, two, that I was so excited about it and that it was Bible-based.
Yeah. I've seen those videos, guys.
What videos?
The one, like you sent me that one last night. That's what they tell you is supposed to happen when you join the church. Why isn't your family so happy for you? Those stupid cartoon videos. It's like...
I hate those videos.
Why isn't my family so happy for me?
Yeah, but you do feel mad. You're just like, why aren't you guys listening to me?
And it just reinforces, as you've said before, it reinforces everything they're teaching because you're being persecuted. Right. And you're like, I must have the truth because I've never seen them respond this way ever.
And it's really because they're just like, we miss you and we love you.
And they're so concerned. And
they're like, in all honesty, you guys do not react that calmly.
Yeah.
I mean, in the beginning, families get mad.
Oh, my family, it got very explosive.
Yep. Argue, all that. With Dad, me and Dad got in a big fight about Christmas. Yeah. When it comes to Christmas and holidays, that's just like
me and my dad.
Really hard.
Sorry, Dad. There was a year me and my dad got in a violent argument over the phone because. So my parents live in Oklahoma, but my dad's side is here in Colorado, and he had come out for Thanksgiving, and this was I definitely thought Thanksgiving was wrong too. They try to Christianize Thanksgiving, and so they, even though it's not religious in nature, it's a very healthy thing that we should practice as people is focusing on what we're thankful for, and that's the main point.
Right.
But they made it seem like, you're eating food sacrificed to idols and all this stuff. So anyway, so we were told not to do that. Yeah. And so my dad had come out, and because I was refusing to go join them, I mean, it turned into this whole thing.
Because he was out visiting.
Yeah, and he's like, "Why don't you want to come see your family?" And I tried to tell him how it was a sin, and we're having a biblical debate. And we were yelling at each other. But we both lost our cool, and I wish I could take that back, but it was just.
It makes Thanksgiving that much more exciting.
Which part?
Now when you celebrate it?
Every year they get to celebrate.
Now I love Thanksgiving. Sure. Like, I love it.
But did you eventually celebrate Thanksgiving as time went on, or no?
Yeah.
Right? Because then they changed it, that you could go.
Oh, no, not while I was in the church. No, in the church, never.
See, we didn't at first, but then we did later.
I never did. And that was the other thing, too. Like, so there did come a
point.
Yeah.
In the office or house churches too.
Yeah, and because there was a point in time where I think they were saying you could go join, but then it's like my family had given up on inviting me to that kind of stuff, and they weren't coming to Colorado to do holidays. So even if I wanted to, they weren't local, So, so I just chose not to, because I was already kind of weird about holidays for personal reasons before joining the group. So when they were telling us we couldn't, I'm like, no problem. Yeah. Cool. I think Christmas sucks.
Yeah.
It's all commercialized. Everyone's so damn greedy.
Those explanations of Christmas, Halloween,
it's like you guys just helped my case.
Thanksgiving for our family was like, that makes no sense. Why can't you celebrate Thanksgiving?
Yeah. So but that's the thing. They Christianized it and made you afraid that every single family, they're going to pray to Jesus before eating the food. And it's a custom in America to hold hands and be around. If you're a part of that.
My family does do that.
And mine did too. Mine did too.
But Tony would leave and I would just follow her.
Yeah, see, I love that story where you're like, wait, this isn't fair.
We'd all sit downstairs while everybody else was.
And my family would be like, Lindsay, you're just.
Like, you cheater.
Yeah. And I was like, she doesn't have to do it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. You're like, all right, cool. Like, I kind of like your
least favorite thing if you're in, when you go to a funeral or something. Yeah. And they're like, everybody bow your heads and pray. And I'm like, I'm being such a dick, but I feel so disingenuous to pretend like I'm praying.
Yeah. I'll look at my shoes.
I don't really never. That's a social
awkwardness. Or remember when people would pray around you and in your head you're like,
just praying to, Totally.
Does your youngest son still
pray for his food?
Say, Father, thank you, Father and Mother.
He doesn't, but that was one thing that was really
interesting.
Not hard for him to stop. Not that it's a bad thing to be thankful for your food, but it was something
he says
from the moment he was born, he prayed for his food. I remember how
religiously
we prayed for our food.
But a full minute.
I mean, we eat a bite of gum.
And you pray for your food. Thank you, Father. My breath stinks. Thank you. I've been fasting for 3 days.
Yeah, totally.
And people didn't realize they could brush their teeth during that time. It was like,
is that really true?
Yeah, brother, your breath smells like shit right now. Did you eat cat shit today? Because I'm telling you, he's like, no, I'm just fasting. He's like, you can brush your teeth, man.
Because fasting is no drinking either.
Yes, you get so dried out.
No water.
And
people would do 3-day fasts. I never did.
I think I
lasted a day and a half, and that was as much as I could go because I was like, no, I need some water. But then you feel like you failed. Your faith
you never feel good about ending your fast because you're like, was it long enough? Was it did I pray hard enough?
I've heard of people doing 10-day fasts. Yeah, right. But I mean, no, it's not possible. It's not possible.
No. No.
Chad,
No.
thank you so much
This
for
is
coming.
so fun.
Yeah.
This has been really fun.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, we'll definitely do this again.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Let's do it often.
I feel like we have so much more to talk about.
I mean,
know.
if you
I
guys
feel
are
like we
open
could
to it,
go
I
all
would like
day.
to. I would like to be a co-host,
For
or
sure.
like a regular guest.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, regular.
If you guys have any specific questions for Chad, send them to us.
Hit me up, please.
Hit us up, and we can
do
talk
you
about
want
it next time.
us to post your anything that Chad wants us to add to the show notes?
Yeah, I'm not sure what's best, but we can figure that out.
We'll figure it out. We might have show notes, so look at the links below.
Yeah, something like that.
Whatever.
I'm talking into the computer. I don't know. We're gonna do something somewhere. It's in them. Another thing that you said that I think is a really good idea. Mm-hmm. If anyone wants to share via our email, with their 2022.
That's a good idea.
Year-long resolution or whatever you want to call it.
That's a good idea.
Your goal, your mantra.
Yeah.
Year-long mantra.
Something,
that'd be cool to
something that you want to just focus on repeatedly, and it's not meant to make you feel like you failed, but it's just if you do it at all, it's gonna make your life better.
Yeah, and that's that thing that's just nagging at you to go do.
Yeah.
If I got hit by a bus tomorrow, I'd be pissed off that I didn't. X, Y, or Z.
One of my favorite years was 2018, and that focus that year was new experiences. Cool. So everything I did that year, the focus was, what is something I've never done?
That's a good one.
So I learned to ski that year, I think. Yeah, it was that year. And I went whitewater rafting. Nice. I was just doing all kinds of stuff I'd never done. And it was seriously the funnest year. It was great. And I have so many good memories because of that. And I think that's an important part of how you move on is because right now, if you're only been out for a little bit, so much of your mind is consumed with memories of the past. Mm-hmm. And you're like, I don't know what to do now. And so really this has been effective for me because it allows me to make new memories that I enjoy.
Right. That are disconnected from that.
Yeah, totally different. Yeah. And it gives you satisfaction. It helps you build your confidence. And it also helps you make friends along the way. Yeah. And to where people who have similar interests.
Rebuild your community.
Yeah, because that's a big thing. Rebuilding your life. Right. And so...
Cool. Right. So, Playing in Traffic.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks. Really fun. This is great.
At Gmail. Is that it?
Yeah, I think so.
At gmail.com. Email us if you want. You don't have to. Just do it for yourself. You don't need to tell us about it.
Be your own boss.
Yeah. You do it. Be your own boss.
Be your own
We are
boss.
Not controlling your mind.
That's the main thing. Yeah. Do what you want. It's your life.
You don't have to do that. You can do that or not do it.
Yeah.
Anyways, thanks.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you next time.
See you later. You want to say?
Boom, baby!
Yeah.